She doesn't respect you. And the worst part, you've been trained to be okay with that. Not through force, not through cruelty, through something far more insidious. Through conditioning so deep, so normalized, that you've mistaken your submission for love. You've mistaken her comfort for your virtue. You've been so thoroughly domesticated that you now call your own diminishment being a good partner. This video is not for the man who wants to feel better about himself. This is for the man who is finally ready to see what is actually happening inside his relationship and inside himself. What you're about to hear will disturb you, not because it's harsh, but because somewhere beneath the performance of who you've been told to be, you already know it's true. A section with the lie you were sold. You were taught that if you loved hard enough, gave enough, sacrificed enough, you would be rewarded with devotion, with admiration, with a woman who looked at you like you were worth something. So, you gave. You adjusted. You softened your edges and swallowed your anger and apologized for things that didn't deserve apology. You became agreeable, available, endlessly accommodating, and you called it maturity. But here is the truth no one said aloud. Respect is not a reward for sacrifice. Respect is a response to power. Not power in the crude, primitive sense. Power as in a man who knows who he is, a man who has somewhere to be, a man whose presence carries weight, not because he demands it, but because he has built something worth standing on. The moment you made her emotional comfort the organizing principle of your life, something shifted. Not in her character, in her perception of yours. You became the floor she walked on. And no one respects the floor. Section 2, the invisible architecture of contempt. Contempt doesn't arrive loudly, it creeps. It enters through small moments. The eye roll you excused, the dismissive tone you didn't address, the boundary you set and then quietly abandoned the next morning. Each time you tolerated what you should have corrected, you sent a message, not with words, with behavior. And behavior is the only language that the subconscious reads fluently. She didn't decide to lose respect for you. The architecture built itself, brick by brick. Every time you chased, every time you over-explained yourself, every time you needed her validation more than you needed your own, you handed her another brick. This is the invisible dynamic most men never detect until it's too late. They are building the prison of their own diminishment and calling it love. The powerful man understands this early. He knows that how he responds to small disrespects determines how he is treated in all the large moments. He doesn't explode. He doesn't plead. He simply removes himself from what does not honor him, calmly, without theater. And that stillness communicates more than any argument ever could. In section 3, why nice men finish us is not a cliche. You've heard it. You've probably dismissed it as bitter, as misogynistic, as the complaint of men who couldn't figure out how to connect. But strip away the cultural noise and look at the mechanism underneath. Niceness, when it is not anchored to self-respect, is manipulation in disguise. It says, I will be endlessly pleasant so that you will not leave me. It is not generosity, it is fear wearing a smile. And she feels it, not consciously, but somewhere beneath the surface of her awareness, she detects the transaction. She senses the anxiety behind the accommodation. And anxiety is not attractive. Anxiety signals, this man does not believe he is enough without my approval. The man who is genuinely good, not nice, but good, does not perform kindness out of fear. He is kind because he chooses to be from a position of wholeness. And he is equally capable of being unmoved when you try to diminish him. That combination, warmth without neediness, is among the rarest and most magnetic qualities a man can possess. Most men are warm because they are afraid. The powerful man is warm because he is full. The difference is everything. Section 4, the test she doesn't know she's running. She is testing you, constantly, not consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively, at a biological frequency that precedes modern language. Every challenge she throws at you is a question without words. Are you who you appear to be? Every moment of emotional turbulence, every irrational demand, every push against your limits. It is all data collection. She is measuring the depth of your foundation. Most men fail this test, not because they are weak, but because they misread it. They think the test is about the surface content of the argument. They try to win the debate. They try to fix the mood. They try to solve what was never meant to be solved, only endured with dignity. A man who can remain calm in the storm of her emotion without becoming cold, without abandoning her, without collapsing. That man passes. Not because he dominated her, because he demonstrated that his internal ground does not shake when she shakes. That is the foundation she is searching for. That is what biological security actually looks like. The man who crumbles, pleads, over-explains, or rages, he has failed the test he didn't know he was taking. And each failed test recalibrates her perception of who you are. Section 5, the paradox of pursuit. Here is the most counterintuitive truth in this entire conversation. The more you chase her respect, the further it retreats. Respect is not a thing that can be demanded or earned through effort alone. It is a conclusion she arrives at, silently, involuntarily, based on the totality of who you are in motion. It cannot be begged into existence. It cannot be negotiated. It emerges, or it does not. The man who is constantly seeking validation, adjusting his behavior based on her mood, monitoring her expression for signs of approval. He has already surrendered the thing that would have inspired respect in the first place. He has made her his mirror instead of his partner. The man who is focused on his mission, his craft, his growth, who is genuinely too engaged with becoming to be constantly monitoring her reaction to him, that man creates a gravitational pull she cannot fully explain and cannot easily resist. This is not manipulation. This is not game playing. This is what it looks like when a man actually has a life that matters to him. And it is, without exception, more compelling than any performance of devotion. Section 6. Standards are not ultimatums. There is a distinction that most men never understand, and it costs them everything. An ultimatum is a threat. It is desperate leverage deployed by someone who has already lost the internal argument. It says, "I will leave unless you change." And it sounds like a bluff because it usually is. The standard is different. A standard is not delivered. It is alive. It is the quiet architecture of what you will and will not accept, maintained not through declaration, but through consistent behavior over time. The man with standards does not threaten. He simply withdraws his presence from what does not meet them, gradually, decisively, without performance. And that withdrawal, when it is real, communicates with a force that no speech can rival. You do not need to announce your standards. You do not need her to validate them. You simply need to be the kind of man who actually enforces them. In private, in the small moments when no one is watching, but you. That discipline is what separates the man who is respected from the man who is managed. In Section 7, the identity death. Now we arrive at the hardest part of this conversation, the part that most men watch, nod along with, and then quietly walk away from unchanged. Because understanding this is not enough. You have to be willing to destroy something. The version of you that allowed disrespect. He had reasons. He was afraid of losing her. He was afraid of being alone. He was afraid that if he held his ground, she would leave, and her leaving would confirm his deepest fear, that he is not worth staying for. That man must die, not metaphorically, not in some shallow motivational sense. He must be dismantled, examined, and consciously replaced with a man who has made peace with the possibility of loss. A man who would rather live in his integrity alone than live in comfort beneath someone's contempt. This is the threshold that separates the men who transform from the men who merely consume content about transformation. Transformation requires grief. It requires the willingness to lose what does not serve you, even when losing it hurts. Even when the familiarity of the cage feels safer than the uncertainty of the open. The cage is warm, the open air is cold. Most men choose the cage. They rationalize it. They call it love. They call it commitment. They call it maturity. You know what it actually is. You've always known. The final truth, the brutal truth about female respect is this. She cannot give you what you have not built in yourself. You cannot earn her respect without first developing an identity that you yourself respect. Not performance, not posturing. Actual substance. A man who has standards, who has direction, who has the capacity to hold himself together when everything around him is unraveling. A woman does not respect a man because he loves her well. She respects him because he is something. Because his existence has weight, his presence has texture, his absence would actually cost her something. You have been trying to win her respect with your love. But love without self-possession is not strength. It is longing in a tailored suit. Build the self first. The relationship will either rise to meet it, or it will reveal itself to have never been built on solid ground. Both outcomes give you what you actually need. Most men will finish this video and return to exactly who they were. They will feel the truth of it for a few hours. Then the discomfort will settle in, the familiar patterns will reassert themselves, and the slow erosion will continue. A few will not. A few will sit in the silence after this ends and make a decision, not loudly, not dramatically, but in the quiet, where real change is born. They will look at the man they have been and choose deliberately to become someone different. This is not a path of arrogance. It is not a license for cruelty. It is a path of radical self-possession, the kind that makes you, over time, genuinely worth respecting, worth staying for, worth building something lasting with. The door is open. Most will turn back. If you're still here, you already know which kind of man you are. If this reaches something in you that you've been avoiding, subscribe. What comes next is not for everyone, but it was made for you.